Amir's 13. I went to visit Amir after he was operated on. I went very near his ear because he kept repeating something, and he said, "I have a feeling my entire family's dead. Everybody I love has gone to heaven. I wish I had died too." That is not a unique phenomenon. A single wounded child with no surviving family. Entire families have been removed from the civil registry in Gaza. If this isn't mass extermination, I don't know what is. And so we're here today just genuinely to plead with you to do something, not just condemnation.
It starts with a simple question and ends in objective reality. Through our journey from there to here, we find one another and ourselves. And as the next 24 hours breaks free from our last, we gaze onward in reflection of the day.
Come to your own conclusions. Stay vigilant.
Welcome to the Daily Wrap-Up.
Tuesday, July 22nd, 2025. Thank you for joining me today. Sad clip to open with. We're going to make sure we focus today on the starvation that is continuing, the campaign of starvation against the Gazan people, the Palestinian people. Today, we're going to cover quite a bit. Follow up. I've been doing a lot of interviews lately, which I really enjoy doing. And as I'm struggling with time and resources as well, just try to get back on track with doing this as much as I want to, I've noticed that I've just been kind of drifting over. It's a lot easier to do these interviews throughout with everything we're juggling. Nonetheless, it's important. There's so many good interviews to have out there with people, the perspectives that I may not present, that we may not see, but it has taken a lot of the time away. And so today in general, I think it's going to be a little bit of catch up on some of these things or follow up some things we discussed. But today in general, what we're going to be highlighting is a couple of points I'll highlight to start about some discussion we had this morning with Derek on an article he just recently put out. I want to focus on some more the general topic is if U.S. citizens at threat being arrested or potentially deported, and what's been happening in some highlighted cases. In one case, a U.S. veteran, U.S. citizen who was recently arrested and what he went through. We're going to talk about mRNA, vaccines, and a point about where that's going with the current administration. And, in a way, sort of a victory lap of realizing, what is now being forced in the conversation. And let's be clear, not because of what the current administration is doing, but nonetheless being acknowledged through, highest levels of conversation that we were right about what we were saying. And I mean, all of us in the conversation of what these things were from the very beginning. We're going to follow up on how important that is. Talking about, of course, the Epstein story, and really there's two separate parts to this. As I titled it today, as Misty, I think Comrade Misty on Twitter, as well as Steve from AM Wake Up, Slow News Day, framed it as reverse Russiagate. And I wanted to touch on that because I thought that was really a really interesting way to look at this. And I completely agree with how it's playing out. And that no way means, anything other than it's the way it's being used. And we'll go into the nuance of that. It's not to go into start. But we're going to talk about that as its own story. But of course, that relates obviously to the Epstein story and how that's going. And its own story, both the follow-up on how crazy this is and where it's going. But again, just to highlight the embarrassing kind of meltdown, which is important and I think a good thing, of the mainstream alternative media around this. It shows you what they really are. It shows you what their interests are, clearly not the truth. And then the fact that they're willing to adhere to it, even when you know that. I think that's really revealing and important. We'll touch on that, touch on the development around that in the mainstream alternative media and the kind of awareness around this and some of the narratives being thrown to keep you looking anywhere but the obvious, including things that have truth involved. And of course, we'll touch on Thomas Massey's kind of insertion in this, saying he's going to release the phase 2 files, which I got to be honest, I actually felt a little skeptical about, suspicious, but nonetheless going, hey, I hope, as always, I hope he comes out with something that does change the story. And then we're going to finish today on the ongoing genocide, in particular around the starvation aspect. But just as you know, we've been covering this. I mean, if you watch this show well before October 7th, you likely already know most of what we're going to highlight. It's stories of today that show you what I mean is the larger context. You already well understand that this government is willing to starve these people, is willing to kill these people for no reason other than that they're Palestinian. You already know that there's a very clear Zionist element, racist element that drives all of this. You already know that the genocide is ongoing. You already know the tactics they're using. The point is, here are some new elements that show you that it is still happening, that they do still very much believe they can get away with it, and that everyone in the world seems to be aware that it is happening, and yet it still continues to happen. So let's start today with an article that Derek put out today that I just put up this morning that is just really well done. I believe he finished it last night. Mexico moves closer to biometric ID. Will the people comply? Now, remember, Derek, as he highlights right in this article, talked about this. Let's bring it up. I can get the exact date. Is technocracy coming to Mexico? And just kind of showing you the continuity of the work here at TLAV and Conscious Resistance, and Derek and myself included. This is April 1st, 2021. Already seeing where this was going, already keeping tabs on how this was building, not just reacting to the fact that you guys all recognize the technocracies in our face and trying to kind of distract and maybe look like you care about it, but covering it well before, as what I think Sam and Steve, the dangerous versus the safe dangerous, right? That we talk about these things when not mainstream, nor most people, nor the alternative media are even accepting some of these things, and you get attacked for it, and and then it becomes something that starts to kind of break through, and then people try to push it back, and eventually it finds its way, hopefully, into the mainstream, and that's when the mainstream alternative media starts to sort of gravitate around it. The point is long-term investigatory work around what we saw building, never, in some cases, not knowing for sure, right? But saying we worried about this. Here's how we see it fitting together, and sadly, here we are. Now, this is an important update in regard to the not just the U.S. element. I made sure included the tweet that highlights what Whitney said about it, as well as my discussion or my statement around, or I was actually just quoting what Trump said about the biometric wall, land, air, and sea. And so what this has to do with is, one, the fact that this new element of the Mexican side of it from the current president is exactly what we're seeing everywhere else. A forced in sort of like always keeping tabs on every citizen, biometric elements to where you can find anybody, anywhere, anytime under the guise of missing persons. That's one part of it, which should scare you. But then also the argument, or rather the statement of fact, that this is because of what Trump wants in the border, because they're demanding this happen so that they can find immigrants in their country. But of course, you see this applies to much more than just you or even that excuse. They would have made the same argument during COVID, because we got to make sure we know where everybody is to be safe. It's all about an excuse to get this done. And the scary part about this, the reality of it, is that it is coming. It's happening, regardless of what we want. And the biometric wall dynamic is not just about the border, as we've just explained. And I'll just go to that right now. You want a more in-depth conversation? I'll point to the discussion we had today. Derek comes in about hour and a half, hour and 20 minutes. Before that, we had a great conversation with Gordon Dimmick about what he was doing in regard to the Palestinian Action Network. Very important conversation. But Derek, myself, and Steve and Gordon had a conversation about his article. And Derek did a really great job breaking it down. So if you'd like to check it out, also promote Steve's work, check out this conversation, because he really did lay it all down, and we go back and forth. We talk about a lot of it. But make sure you read the article. Very important to know where this is going, and that it seems to just not be slowing down at all. I was also on the Jimmy Dore show yesterday with Misty hosting. That's why I referenced her work there and her statement around reverse Russiagate. This is where we discuss it. Here's the actual post from Jimmy Dore. I will, by the way, be on, I believe, August 18th with Jimmy hosting. And I believe I will have him back on to discuss whatever we discussed at that time. Because remember, I briefly mentioned that I had him on, and it was really strange. It was like every 30 seconds he was being kicked out of StreamYard, and I still have the recording. I should post it for just humor's sake at some point, because we went on for like 15 minutes where like every moment he was being pushed away. Anyway, we will follow up on that. I'll be on his show as well. More coming your way. Shout out to that. And Misty did a great job with their conversation and the larger show. I also want to just include this, that I mentioned it this morning. You go back to August 15th, 2019. We did a show called Google Insider Further Reveals Political Bias. TLAV listed Hong Kong, Kashmir, and Harris goes full, ... Again, showing you that we're not partisan. As always, if you just take a step back and look, we've been calling out everybody from all sides for a long time because the politicians are corrupt. The point, though, is the Google Insider. I forget if this was Zach or not. I forget. There's been more than one. The point was the list they showed included the last American Vagabond, well back then at 2019, before we were even really got the show going the way we do today, just showing you that we've always been listed in the minds of the power structure as a problem. Why? Because we're objective and nonpartisan, and that is the kryptonite of the power structure. I'm telling you guys. But anyway, check it out. I think it's important to recognize how long we've been suppressed in that way and how others who claim to be are really not. But this is an important conversation because it really, it kind of cuts to the quick of the issue for, the average American, right? Not wanting to acknowledge or not even being aware in many cases that right now with what's going on with ICE and now having a budget larger than most militaries in the world, if not all, that they're going after U.S. citizens, or they don't care if they do, and that they're not rounding up gang members. And you could argue some are getting rounded up, but if you look at this, if you continually look at the numbers, whether the first batch that they publicize or the ongoing dynamic, the majority, not a hyperbolic statement, have no criminal record. And I don't want to say the majority are here legally because I haven't been able to flesh that out, but a major number, a majority in the beginning for sure, were here legally, which is just such an important point that I always stress because it seems to fly right by people who don't want to hear it. But they're illegal immigrants. No, they're not. They were here legally and they had no criminal record. My point is this is something that people still seem having. I mean, I know some of them don't want to acknowledge it, but there are some people that don't seem to even know that there are veterans and U.S. citizens and people with green cards and visas with no criminal record who are being swept up, or people who are being denied entry back into the country with a legal green card because they just don't want them to. I mean, I'll go over this today. It's been many cases like this, or somebody who has a visa, has been here legally, has a job, a family, and they go, well, you got a ticket back in 2015, so we're going to revoke your visa. Yes, that's happened more than once. This is, I mean, even if you agree with that, they're not illegal immigrants, so how does that make sense to you? But secondarily, actually most importantly, how is that what you were promised? Going after all the bad guys, the rapists and the murderers? Well, no, they're working with them as they get rid of people that are easy to get rid of. They're letting the MS-13 members go because Bukele has a deal with them. They're letting the people who are actual traffickers make statements about people that they want to go after for political reasons and letting them stay while getting rid of the people who are not the criminals, who are not violating our immigration laws. It's everywhere you look. This case, it just upset me because of how obvious it is and how it seems shockingly political. Shockingly obvious in a political way. That sounded weird. It's very obviously political. It's about politicized. It's because it has to do with California, cannabis, and that he was just present with brown skin. That's the story here, guys. It's not hard to see. These are everywhere you look. I mean, this is just one, and I'll give you a few more examples. U.S. Army veteran George I think it's, how would you say that? Retes, R-E-T-E-S, says he was unfairly held for 3 days. I mean, think about this. 3 days. He's an American citizen and a veteran who was there on security, working security for a legal, L-E-G-A-L, a legal marijuana farm in the United States. So he's working there. They raid the farm. I mean, at what point did they stop having to identify themselves, present warrants, and ask you questions? This guy is a U.S. citizen and a veteran. They didn't even give him, and I'll just read what it says. He was unfairly held for 3 days in an immigration raid in California, even though he's a U.S. citizen and a military member. He, 25 years old, who works, former military member, he's retired, who works as a security guard at a cannabis farm, legal, and that ICE agents surrounded his car. He says they shouted confusing orders, which is what we keep hearing, by the way. Come in, get out, stand up. They didn't know what to do, and they broke his window. His driver's side window, yanked him out of the car. We keep seeing this. Of course, everyone goes, oh, it's because they're bad guys. They're illegal immigrants. Okay, what's your answer now? Okay, then they arrested him for 3 days. At what point should they, why couldn't they go, do you have identification? Are you here legally? The point is, guys, you must acknowledge they don't care. It is about maximum bodies, without the concern that they don't even ultimately have the legal reality, legal standing to do what they're doing. They're told at some level they will not be held accountable. Pulled him out of the car. Okay. He claims he was hit with tear gas and pepper spray as a U.S. citizen and veteran during his arrest and was not allowed, that's important, to show his ID or explain that he was a citizen. They wouldn't listen to him. He was taken to a federal facility in L.A. where he says he was put on suicide watch without being told why. Now, clearly, he's not suicidal. He was not even he's not a legal immigrant. The argument, if you flush this out and watch the interviews, because he was pushing back. I'm not an illegal immigrant. I'm an American citizen. Oh, yeah? Well, we're going to punish you for not just complying. Now, I should have included that tweet. I put it out. I'm not going to grab it now, but somebody was circulating a video. I think it was Sal the Agorist, about a person who was in his car filming, completely nonviolent, within his rights, completely within his rights, saying, what am I being pulled over for? I'm not going to get it. I don't have any right, blah, blah, blah. And they bash in his window. They grab him out of the car, and on video, literally beat, his hands are like this. He's not even, and they're beating him up, punching him in the face, grab him on the ground. You should have just done what you're told. And of course, somebody underneath goes, he should have just complied and dealt with it later. And my point was, this is the problem with a lot of Americans, is that you actually believe or have been convinced that you can comply your way out of tyranny. It's not possible. And in fact, that's what they want from you. And the problem is that people like that will always insult you for simply standing up for your rights within your rights. Now, I say it like that for a reason, right? Because you can stand up for your rights in a violent way or an illegal way. Standing up for your rights within your rights and still being told to just comply with tyranny. So the point is, back to this point here, it applies to a lot of it, but the idea overall, there was a connected point there that I just dropped somehow, but the point of simply the idea that you don't just, if there's a legal reality for why they were supposed to do this the proper way, because that's when you find out whether this person might have been a citizen or find out whether they might not be illegal alien at all, understand the reality. So he was taken to a federal facility where he says he was put on suicide watch. And I think that is, again, the same reason they beat this guy up for simply acknowledging his rights, because it was inconvenient for them, because he dared to push back against their authority. And the point being is that somebody probably told them that they're not going to be held accountable, which is obviously not the reality if this flushes further out. But it says they did not let me shower. They didn't let me have a phone call. You can understand, guys, this is an American citizen. I'm really pointing that out over and over for a reason, because people just don't want to think about what that means, that you could be there. You could be the one. And in the very beginning, you might have been sent to El Salvador had this not fleshed out the way that it has. And Trump has 6 times floated the idea of taking U.S. citizens out, deporting them, removing citizenship. And twice in those, he's made it clear he meant born here as well as naturalized. I don't know why that's not alarming for more people. They wouldn't let him call anybody. That's a crime. Wouldn't let him shower. That's a crime. Wouldn't let him ID himself. That's a crime. They didn't let him speak to his attorney. That's a crime. Didn't identify, no warrant. Come on, guys. This is Gestapo here. They never told me what I was arrested for. Every single one of these things are crimes. And that's whether or not he's a veteran or a U.S. citizen. So in the entire time I was there, I was covered in tear gas and pepper spray. So think back. So they spray him, they beat him up, they grab him, they rough him up, rather than take him there. And he sits with pepper spray for 3 days because he dared to try to push back non-violently. Now, he missed his daughter's birthday on top of that. When he was released, of course, 3 days later, officers told him he faced no charges and sent him away without even helping to get him home. If you can't acknowledge how absolutely shockingly broken this is, how alarming this is, then you don't care about the Constitution, you don't care about this country. So that's why I argue that most conservatives right now, when finally confronting this or the Epstein lie or Israel, are spinning out. And rightly so, and for good reason. And I think it's a positive thing that they're finally starting to see through this. But my God, how do we not call this out? Judge rules Trump administration broke law and take down a public funding tracker. I should have put this at the end, by the way. But the point is, in endless amounts of examples. We discussed this on Fine Points for the BitChute podcast. Here is a Washington Post article. Trump officials accused of defying 1 in 3 judges who ruled against him. Now you read this, it's something like 70-something% of every single thing they've been doing. I forget where the number is in here. Don't quote me on the exact percentage. The point though, that's the wrong one. That was different. Well, this is one statement. Anyway, I'll read this. It says, the Post found the administration is accused of defying, and this is by the judges, by the way, of frustrating court oversight in 57 of the cases out of 165, 35%. What they're saying is 1 in 3 of all the judges, including conservative judges, have said that they are lying, presenting false evidence, manipulating the court. Read it for yourself. And this is not the Post. This is, they did their own investigation. These are conservative judges and liberal judges telling you that we caught them in a lie. This stuff just doesn't flesh out as much. It's not as flashy and exciting to talk about what the court document said, but it's right in front of us, just like all of this is. This is the same kind of conversation. Judge rules Trump administration broke law when they took down a public funding tracker. Now, how do you make sense of this? It was simply a website designed to track the where their funding was going. You know, the funding they take from you, your tax dollars, and they tried to stop you from seeing that. Is that what an honest government does? Are you going to spin it as some kind of, well, the Democrats will manipulate it? Well, they'll manipulate everything, just like you do. The facts are still the facts, and we have a right to see how that's being spent. But you know why it's happening. If you're honest with yourself, it's all spinning out right now. They're not being honest. They're not acting in your interest. Now, we already saw many different people, after all the screaming about how we can't just take people back from El Salvador, that'd be trafficking, wouldn't it? All these lies they spun. And of course, Garcia comes back. Then we have now a major development. Hernandez, the barber he came back and just told us that he was beat up, which we already told you because the reports were coming out before. But he was abused and beat up, and he's innocent. Now he's being released. Now, the only way to make sense of that is to recognize and be honest about the fact that they rounded up people who were not criminals. This guy's a barber who had I think he's the one that had the autistic awareness tattoo. That's what they claimed made him an MS-13 member. Guess what? He's not. Or Tren de Aragua. He's not. And now he's free because they lied to you. And that's most of these cases. And they're just finally getting people that are getting momentum through this because their narrative's breaking down. There was also this guy, Arturo Suarez, the musician imprisoned by the Trump administration without due process, like all the rest of them. And now this is showing you why due process, you shouldn't need to be convinced of that, why it's so important. Even if you think every other one of them were criminals, this is why they violated the reality. They're unconstitutional because no due process was given. So for all you know, they're lying about all the rest of them too. You don't know that for sure. So don't claim you do, because every day we're finding more examples that these people were lied about. He told his brother that while he was in prison, they were beaten daily by the guard. This is a different guy. This is an unaccountable, despotic, concentration camp. It's what it is. They got barely any daylight. They barely even let outside. They do hard labor. No one gets to speak to their lawyers. It is, I should say very few, but because of what's going on, that's starting to break down. It's wild, guys. Now here, the men that the Trump administration sent to El Salvador mega prison were freed in prisoner swap. These were Americans that were freed from Venezuela. Now, I think I will make a point to go back and dig into that. I forget where they came from, but let's remember, a lot of times these are people that are working within the intelligence apparatus that they frame as innocent Americans that got caught up in X, Y, and Z. Either way, the point is not about that, which I'm glad, they're free. Good. They should, anybody being in prison, I guess, well, it's hard to say knowing what their crimes might be, but, generally a good thing that they got released and people are back, assuming that they're innocent people. The point is that they released from, they exchanged for people that they wanted. So they got people that Venezuela were holding, right? And so the question is that who were they, right? El Salvador released 200 Venezuelans held in a notorious prison in exchange for Venezuela freeing 10 Americans. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, there's two stories in this. This one was the point about them basically freeing people in an exchange. And so right there, that shows you then what was the point of these people being sent there. Like, because remember, Venezuela in the very beginning, they claimed they wouldn't take them. They lied about that. That became very clear. And so now it's coming back out. They lied and they just did the deal they probably could have done in the first place. But secondarily, there's exchanges for people that, remember the deal of Bukele with MS-13. This is not something we should be disputing at this point. It's coming out every which way. And so the reality that he made a deal with these groups, my question from the very beginning about Garcia, about any of them, was there something more to this? Even still with Garcia, I still sense there's something more about that story. What did they know about what Bukele did? What did they know about something here? And so my point is about wondering what they were gaining from this, because this is a despotic, illegal setup. Everything about what they're doing. He is a Zionist. He is actively breaking the law in every which way. They violated the legal system in regard to the elections. They suspended civil liberties. It's not what anybody pretends we're emulate or what they want this country to emulate, but it is. It's going in the same direction. Here. Oh, wait. That was in the wrong spot. Let me come back to that. 80-year-old asylum recipient and torture survivor secretly deported after trying to replace his green card. Now, this is a different one, but I've had like 6 or 7 stories that there's a lot that we could have gotten to today, but I have limited time today I'm going to be on an interview in about an hour and a half, 2 hours. So more we'll get to in the future, but the point is that you keep seeing these examples, people that are not the big bad criminals they claim they're going after, but just names they can add to a list. 82-year-old legal U.S. resident and torture survivor was deported to Guatemala after visiting an immigration office in Philadelphia to simply replace a green card that he lost. So there's no reason to deport this person, according to his family and local media reports. The man, Luis Leon, had been granted asylum in the United States after surviving torture under the Pinochet regime, the regime the U.S. government backed. So that means then the support of the torture. A longtime resident of Pennsylvania disappeared after his June 20th appointment, during which immigration and ICE officers handcuffed him without explanation. His wife told Morning Call he was allegedly held in a building for 10 hours before released, and his family was unable to find out that his whereabouts for weeks. Why? He has rights, guys, like anybody, including illegal aliens do in this country, and they didn't even notify his family. This is so shockingly unaccountable. Anyway, we could go on for... this is just one of 100 stories every day that I'm seeing. It's everywhere you look. So, here, in regard to mRNA, vaccines, and the same frustration, right? The idea that we can be so blatantly lied to right to our faces about things that are so foundational to, everything. Health is like a pillar of everything in our lives. And we still just can't get past where we are. And so here, remember that at the very beginning of this conversation, from the moment the COVID-19 scenario was playing out, many of us were very skeptical because that's the right thing to do. You should be skeptical when government starts speaking. That's just intelligence. And then we started to find more facts to back up the narratives that were being lied about, the risks of what they were doing, the research that they put out that proved they were lying about X, Y, and Z, the data that came out that proved that they were hurting people more than they were helping. It just never stopped. It just kept going. And so we got suppressed. We got censored. We got booted off Patreon, everywhere else. And the point is we were right. And that as we being anybody who was on that side. And so now today, it's just interesting to highlight the fact that this is acknowledged by damn near everybody. And even so, they're still rolling forward with the agenda. Even I'll get to in a second, the claim, which it seems to be somewhat accurate or valid, of RFK being on a vacation when they rolled out this Moderna shot. That in no way challenges, what about Stargate? What about the self-amplifying shot you guys approved? What about the mRNA platform you already rolled out? What about, every single other point. Endorsement of MMR shots. That doesn't make sense. It just seems like a caveat that they're using to make it sound like that. We'll come back to it. This is Dr. Pat Soon Xiong saying we should acknowledge the need to address this. This is Camus saying Dr. Robert Sullivan, MD, a board-certified anesthesiologist, stood before the U.S. Senate with devastating admission, I am vaccine injured. This was put out July 19, 2025. His testimony shatters the myth that COVID vaccine injuries are rare or mild, which we know all of this, though. A broken doctor's body, it says doctor's body broken, 3 weeks post-vaccination, he went from elite fitness to heart failure. Remember how much they tried to sidestep this, or all the idea of collapsing athletes that still seems to barely be regarded as fact, even though it was proven by me and plenty of others in 2021, using their own statistics and the reality of what was happening. And that was only a small sliver of the reality of those numbers. Diagnosed with pulmonary hypertension, progressive fatal disease caused by spike protein-induced vascular damage, 50% lung capacity loss. It goes on and on and on. And here you see it testifying and just laying it out for you. Not a conspiracy. This is medicine, and medicine must do better. Here is a clip I'll play for you from John Campbell talking with Malhotra. And it says, a reanalysis of the original Pfizer-Moderna trials revealed. Here's what's crazy. Don't forget, the Donald Trump administration, their FDA with McCary and what's his name? They just came out. What's his name? Sanjay? I forget his name. But the point is they came out and they told you, we looked at the data, we went over these studies, and they're safe and effective. That is what they just told you. Here, a reanalysis of the same data, which, by the way, you don't need to reanalyze to see that they're killing people, 2 to 4 times higher risk of serious harm from the vaccine than hospitalization from COVID. Another thing we were breaking down in 2021 with proof, like a lot of us were, it's not just TLAV. This data was buried, yet it formed the basis for global mandates, coercion, and ruined careers. So the main point is to recognize that the current administration, while trying to sell you on that they're fighting these things, are the ones keeping it going. Well, the data has been clear, and they just told you the data says the opposite of what we all know. It's hard not to keep seeing this. Oh, I think I'll just go past this for time. But it's just them saying what we just read. The bottom line, mRNA vaccines were more harmful than COVID itself, which we all knew. Here is a good clip from Mary Talley Bowden talking to Tucker. And it says, the spike protein antibodies are 10 times higher in the vaccinated compared to the unvaccinated, even years after the shots, which we've been proving. And so is she. So have a lot of us. And I said, in case we forgot about this still major story, that is still very much a problem. But here's what's fascinating to me. Good old Twitter. This is how vaccines work. I can't even believe they do. I don't know what moron thought that and how they sold the fact checker scenario on that. Let's be clear. Vaccines don't work like that. These are injections. These are gene therapy injections, if we're going to be honest about it. Let's be even more open about it. Vaccines from before don't work like that. Even the vaccines from that they claimed these things were. That's not what they said. Are we going to pretend now, rewriting history, thanks Twitter, that they claimed that they would produce spike proteins continuously? No, they claim the opposite. They said it would be maybe one and done, right? In your shoulder muscle, it's all over. Or were they telling us that once you stopped, you would continue to make them forever and far more than it says, even 10 times higher in the vaccinated compared to the unvaccinated, that you get the shot, that it continues to make them, and that you are 10 times higher forever. Come on. That's not what they promised. They said it would be one. It's done. It's a one to create the reaction, and then it's over, and they're not circulating your bloodstream. Remember all that? So it's really interesting to me that Twitter is going to just simply try to sell you and people that are dumb enough to fall for it, that just because there's a CDC link, that's how vaccines work. That's wrong on every possible count. Don't you find that crazy? I don't even see that many people calling that out. But here is what I thought was so interesting. Okay, so thank you, Twitter, for telling us that's how vaccines are supposed to work. Well, you can only take it one of two ways. They're trying to kind of conflate the current injections as vaccines, or trying to claim that that's what was always supposed to happen with the new ones. Well, you might want to tell American Red Cross, Twitter, because here they are still. I love bringing this up, as you know, because they're still floating this. This is still sitting there. Here they are from September 2022. And if you check their data right now, they still make the same claim. We don't label blood products as containing vaccinated or unvaccinated blood, as the COVID-19 vaccine does not enter the bloodstream and poses no safety risk. Both of those are false statements. They know that because I've been retweeting this for the last 3 years. Yet another peer-reviewed study finds you're wrong. It literally says that what they're claiming doesn't exist. The spike proteins in the blood up to 28 days after and years after that we now know. That's one of many studies down here that I've continued to retweet. And they keep saying that. So isn't it interesting how different these narratives? I mean, we're being played, guys. That's the thing to take from this. Red Cross knows they're lying. Twitter knows it's lying, or whatever mechanism is being used there. We're trying to be something is trying to deceive us. And here we are with them still pushing this line. Well, apparently over here, it's okay that they're circulating forever, but this is why they're going to allow that blood to be used on people that aren't sick, or rather just aren't, average people who are going to take this blood and then get spike proteins in their body, because that's what the science shows. Wild. Now here is Gabbard. They're all doing their little sideshow tap dances to be like, don't look over at the Epstein story, what I think a lot of this is. And so this one could very well be in another category we'll come back to. But here she is trying to push the idea that, well, actually, let's just be clear, stating the fact that what happened with Fauci was a crime and that we should be arrested. And, well, yeah. But as David Icke rightly points out, does this lady not know that Trump was in office when the COVID hoax was played and all that he called, and that he still calls himself the father of the fake vaccine? Everything she says here, which I'll play for you, applies to Donald Trump and the lying and corrupt regime that she represents. He says, yes, I know the Democrats are the same. It's a one-party state, which is what she conveniently fails to mention. Well, even if you want to leave that last part out, even if you disagree with that, you can't say what she's about to say without acknowledging the idea that all of this happened under Trump's administration. He's responsible for all of it. And then gave Fauci a medal after this is supposed to be the most obvious thing in the world, and still says that the vaccine saved lives and he's the father of the vaccine. I mean, really take a step back and try to make sense of this. They're drowning in their own lies right now.
Guys who watch me know that I use the word Democrat elite a lot. People ask me, who are these Democrat elite that you speak of?
They're elitists. Let's be clear. That means they believe they're better than you, not that they are. They're saying elite. That means they're better than you. Think about that. On top of that, she only started making that kind of statement once she overlapped with Donald Trump, as far as I can tell, because that's about the hyperbolic partisan game that they all play. Before that, she seemed to be going all over, saying things that resonated with people, the real people, not the fake partisan team sport politics crowds.
Yes, it's people like Joe Biden, people like Hillary Clinton, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer. But it's important to recognize that it is also unelected officials like Fauci.
Wink, wink, deep state. Yeah, that's all of them, right? That's not one side or the other. That's what they're trying to lean into, though. But let's just even say that's a separate point. Yeah, those are elitists, that's for sure. Okay, next point.
Who has shown throughout his entire career serving under both Democrat and Republican administrations through his actions that he serves his own interests and the interests of big pharma and big government consistently over the interests of the American people.
How long have I told you Fauci was the scapegoat? I could be wrong still. Maybe I actually I'll still on top of that statement argue I find it really hard to believe he'll ever actually be held accountable, because all that does is lead back to Trump and then the larger story, which is all of them. But either way, even by reputation, it's easy to see coming. Right? He's the one that can go, it's all Fauci. He's the mastermind. We know that's not true, seeing as how both Biden and Trump have all carried out the same agenda. So, I mean, if you're going to say that he did that, why is Trump still telling us those things are safe? You just can't make sense of this if you have a brain cell, let alone two to rub together.
The insidious part about this is that he and others take these actions and abuse their power in the name of working for our best interests, when in fact they are doing the exact opposite. For example, as you remember, during COVID, Dr. Fauci demanded that we place blind faith in him and the government. They said,
that's Trump. Just in case you're confused, that's Donald Trump and Biden and the rest. But at that moment, that was Donald Trump.
Just trust us. Just trust the science, that we are acting in the interest of your public health.
We being Trump and Fauci and everybody else on that team.
But over time, we saw what it was really about. It was about control.
You may have. Trump doesn't say that. Trump still thinks it's a safe and effective vaccine. The FDA that you work alongside just told us the science said it was safe and effective. Just in case you missed that.
It was about more money, huge amounts of money.
Money was a side part of this. Money was, I think it's actually the most obvious of the whole thing, that money, I don't even think was the driving factor behind it. Money was a benefit. Money was a byproduct of their agenda. But I mean, there's always parts and people and moving elements that do care most about the money. But if you look at the agenda, are we really going to pretend this was about money?
Our taxpayer dollars being put directly into the pockets of big pharma.
Yeah, they know we don't trust these things. Remember when big pharma, the phrase was a conspiracy theory? It's like when Trump came out the first time and was like 9/11, lock her up. The Fed, he was just like I said then, he was simply tapping in to what was an already growing awareness movement. Not that they all had the right information, but that people were starting to ask questions that we weren't normally allowed to ask. It's only gone way further to this day. But the point is, they're just trying to do the same thing, which we'll go into more in a second, about how they're trying to deflect from the Epstein point. But okay, back to this, right? David Icke's point. How are you going to say something like that while you understand that we all know that Donald Trump was the central role in that example? But again, it's not to say one more than the other. It's just your U.S. government, left and right. But the point is about in that moment. But here's MAGA voice saying, holy SHIT, here's Gabbard exposing tons of Democrat elites, including Fauci. What do you mean exposing? Because you just say they're elites? I mean, think about how dumb this is. Such cheerleading. Because she goes, they're elites. And he goes, whoa, they said they're elite. Or is anybody confused about that? We all know that that's the group. It's just a funny way to always react, like always at an 11. Everything they say is like hair on fire, the most important thing in the world, even though it usually isn't. Now I see why Democrats worked overtime to stop her from getting confirmed, because she points at them as people in power. It's silly. I mean, obviously what David Icke is saying is the real point. This seems like a deflection away from their involvement. Now, RFK Jr. posted on July 21st, yesterday. Here's leading report, which I'm not a fan of. Breaking: HHS Secretary RFK fires 2 officials following the approval of the Moderna shot. Now, to be clear, in no way has made any movement to stop that approval, to pull back that dangerous shot that they'll tell you in some conversations is super bad and it's going to kill your family. But we're going to fire them and then let that shot keep being given to children because they were liars. Okay, that makes sense. RFK Jr. says these two high-ranking officials were fired for acting on their own and subsequently greenlit without anyone or Dr. Bhattacharya's approval. The Moderna mRNA vaccine for infants and children. Okay, well, maybe because you guys have been screaming the virtues of these things for the last 6 months that maybe they thought that was okay. You started an mRNA Stargate platform, the AI-driven drugs, a self-amplifying shot, Moderna, or rather the original Moderna for bird flu, not the second one they did like this for children, or the platform, or the MMR shot you leaned into, or like the other 17 examples you could that Mary Dr. Bowden pointed to, where these are in the works. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to say this is a bad thing when you're working on 17 others in the same direction. So this seems like a ploy. This seems like a, what would you call it? A trap, a red herring. I mean, it's something to get you to think, oh, okay, good. He is fighting them and it wasn't his fault, which is what you're getting from the mainstream alternative media. But again, if you even take this face value, maybe this all could be a lie. It does. How do you think this is the example when you're allowing all the others? But that's the story. He fired them, and then we're going to let the shot keep being given. Make sense of it for me. Now, Sasha Latipova, not buying it. She says, you are 100%, we'll say stupid, if you buy this little amateur theater play. Oh gosh, bad scheming servants went behind the back of the good master. Here's End Tribalism and Politics saying, Dr. Malone has just revealed HHS officials went behind RFK's back on a major decision. While RFK was on vacation, the FDA approved new Moderna COVID shot. You know, the same FDA that just told you all the science says are safe and effective. Doesn't add up, right? He received no briefing and gave no sign off, and that now is still being used. I agree. I think this is silly. Now, Tammy Bruce came out and said today, the United States announced our decision to withdraw from UNESCO. Like many UN organizations, UNESCO strayed from its founding mission. Going forward, U.S. participation in international organizations must make America safer, stronger, and more prosperous. You know, aside from the other 75,000 examples of that not being the case with everything to do with Israel and all the foreign wars and all the actions here but let's just pretend that's the honest statement. Tammy Bruce is just like all the rest. I think she's way outside of her depth. The point is UNESCO, UN, right? Are we confused about who's pressuring the United States to do that? Obviously, the group screaming that the UN is Hamas probably plays a factor on that. The point I want to include it for in this conversation is let's not forget what UNESCO has, or one of the main things. This is from the 2005 from UNESCO, the Universal Declaration of Bioethics and Human Rights. That's just one example. Now, I'm not saying that UNESCO is good in every possible way or good in general or that any UN thing is. Question everything, always. The point, though, is that when they pull out of these things, they already don't care about this, but they have far less reason or obligation to care about things like this. Just in case you forgot, we read this a lot during COVID-19, and this was the Universal Declaration of which they were a part at 2005 on bioethics and human rights. And the points I thought were most important were things like human dignity and human rights. Human dignity, human rights, and fundamental freedoms are to be fully respected. They write the interests and welfare of the individual. You should have priority over the sole interest of science or society. That's so you can't say it'd be a violation of this pact to say we need to do it for the benefit of, science and the progression of our agenda, or that we need to do it to protect your grandma. You all have to do it because that's going to hurt everybody else. The point is those don't apply from an international sense. Secondarily, consent. Therapeutic medical intervention is only to be carried out with the prior free and informed consent of the person concerned based on adequate information. Neither of those things happened. We weren't given informed consent. We weren't given adequate information. The consent as well should, where appropriate, be expressed. It was not, and may be withdrawn by person, you, concerned at any time for any reason without a disadvantage or prejudice. None of that happened. Now, they don't feel like they're a part of it. Let's see if it has any less effect at all. The point is, these are the things that they're disassociating themselves with. I think we know where this goes. And of course, Maha, last point, which is just, the thing we were joking about I was joking with Misty on the Jimmy Dore show. So Steak and Shake comes out and says, starting August 1st, Steak and Shake will offer Coca-Cola with real cane sugar in glass bottles. America deserves better. So this whole thing was such a weird kind of sidestep. The first thing was that we did, this is a monumental shift for Coca-Cola. Well, Coca-Cola came out and said, we're not doing anything different. So what it seems is that the certain locations will just start serving whatever, the bottles from Mexico, wherever they get them that use real cane sugar, those still do exist. So this is a token. It's not even real. There's not a real, and on top of that, and I will say in a small way, it's a positive step. Cane sugar is a hell of a lot better than high fructose corn syrup. He says, Maha is winning. And I simply said, yeah, they roll out an entire direction based on AI-created mRNA shots for apparently everything. MMR shots, support. Fluoride in your water, they now are appealing that removal. CRISPR fake meat with pig meat and everything else. And I mean, on and on and on. But here is some slightly less bad for you Coca-Cola with your fast food. Hashtag winning. I mean, come on, guys, we can't be this silly. Obviously, that's a small positive step, but in the context of all of what's going on, right, Coca-Cola is not just bad for you because of high fructose corn syrup. It's bad for you because of damn near everything else in it as well. And so Coca-Cola, you should be running from. Diet Coke, Coca-Cola with cane sugar is not good for you, let alone with fast food. It's just it's a ploy. But I still will say good. I'm glad that happened. But the idea is that is a manipulation when you look at what's really going on. Now, in regard to the Epstein point, Dr. Simon Godek, let's not forget to kind of set the tone that this is something that they're still claiming was a hoax. Like coming out to the point to where now they're going, Trump is saying that it's Obama personally was the one behind the Epstein hoax. That's what they're going with now. Despite the fact that it seems the hard line has been drawn, which I pretty clearly from my perspective is most conservatives are like, that's ridiculous. That it's just a hoax, that it's a hoax in general, first of all. And then the team sport influencer politics side who are just going to go, whatever they said, team sport, woohoo, Trump's right, we're going to win. That's the people that they're pointing to from the outside as the MAGA movement. And I don't think that's even the case right now. So Dr. Simon Godek says, good morning to everybody but Donald Trump. If the Epstein files were a hoax, they wouldn't have been on Bondi's table. And Ghislaine Maxwell wouldn't be in prison. Just to make the obvious point yet again. If she's in prison for trafficking and that's a hoax, you want to make that make sense for me, Trump? Now, of course, I think their own stupidity, their own lack of awareness opened that door now for Ghislaine Maxwell and her lawyers to argue, well, okay, if it's a hoax, then why am I in prison? And that's really happening right now. That started an appeal. The DOJ tried to push it back. Now it seems like they're talking behind the scenes. I think we know where that goes. How much you want to bet she gets out? Nothing happens. But here he is on I think it's the 20th, saying, my poll numbers with the Republican Party and MAGA gone up significantly. This is why we don't trust polls. Since the Jeffrey Epstein hoax was exposed. I mean, come on, guys. That's got to be the dumbest. I flatly don't believe that. And then it says radical left Democrats and just troublemakers. So he's calling anybody out there who doesn't agree that this is a hoax. I mean, all the people that were taking it on that side because of where he put them, he's now calling you troublemakers, weaklings, Democrats. They have hit 90%, 92, 93, various polls, right? Polls that are selectively applied to very highly MAGA Trump side. It's so obvious how they play these games. The general election numbers are my highest ever. People like strong borders and all of my other things that I've done. Way to sum that up well. God bless America. Well, first of all, I thought this was interesting. Annie posts this for all you MAGA who keeps asking why Biden didn't release the files. Well, it says, this is just a screenshot. Biden didn't release the files, or the Epstein files were sealed by a judge after Ghislaine Maxwell's trial. They weren't unsealed until January 2024. Now, there's a point to make about whether they could somehow unseal that in their own way, but it says, so no, Biden couldn't release what wasn't legally available. Biden didn't run a cult. He led people to, that's the rest of everything else is going to be like, I think Biden did, just like the Trump side did. They're all lost in the partisan game. But the point is that the narrative of why didn't they? Well, they wouldn't have. Well, there's a different point to add to that. Let's be clear, by the way. I think it's because in any sense, they're all guilty. They're all either implicated on this or they're all part of the same team, which is the obvious answer to why wouldn't Biden have released it? Because they're all on it, because they're all part of the same team, because they're not really fighting each other. I don't know for sure, but that would be my answer to the obvious why. But here's Pete going, hey, Grok, what do you have to say about this? I just find this interesting. It says the Epstein documents were sealed by court order until unsealed in January 2024. So Biden couldn't release them earlier. The judiciary handled it independently. Trump promised more disclosures during his campaign, but his administration has faced backlash for delays and alleged blocks. Though recent orders Bondi 2025 have released phases. No Democrat campaigned on this, mostly true, with nuance on Trump's role. I just thought that was interesting, the timing of the change of that. Now, here's what we're getting. This is Michael Tracy calling out Bannon and Alex Jones. This is amazing stuff. Bannon and Jones joined forces to explain how the Epstein files are part of a long-term criminal conspiracy against Trump. And his problem is purely PR, not by not communicating the nature of the conspiracy. Is that possible? Of course it is. Question everything. That's obviously a possibility. Is there evidence to back that up? I mean, you realize how they keep floating this? Is there any evidence to support that claim other than insinuation or that they would do that because they hate Trump? That's not evidence. That's opinion. I said, how embarrassing. Does anybody really buy this? I don't think conservatives are buying this. You know, this idea that even if you buy this now, that means Trump lied to you this whole time. That Bondi lied to you this whole time. That Bongino and Cash lied to you this whole time. So either way you look at it, that's unsettling for people that want to believe in these people. And so Jones, like I told you, is right back to the game. We're right back to, the whole, well, he might be the Antichrist, but yeah, you played that for about half a day. Now it's like Trump, he's the best. He's being lied about. Deep state. Here's Clinton. Look over there at Obama. That's what's happening right now. Here, another example. Gunther Eagleman says, breaking news. This guy's opinion. That's what this is. Representative Tim Burchett says he has a gut feeling that the Biden administration altered the files. Well, why would anybody report that? Only blind supporters and team sport politics and children supporting their favorite person. Come on, guys. Breaking news. This self-serving politician says he's got a feeling that the thing that helps him and their team happened. God, these people are childish, man. That's what I posted. I forgot about that. It's just like, God, it's so silly. Here, Dr. Shiva made some points on this. And I think this is worth your consideration because he includes a lot of court documents that back up what he's saying. So he says Donald Trump is covering up for child rape and trafficking. And he goes on, but this person says, you want me to believe in 2019 there was damning evidence and Biden didn't really? Same old statement because Trump started that. Well, yeah, maybe because they're all on it. Can't you factor in that very obvious possibility? I mean, the idea, anyway, just especially if Trump was involved. Cracker Jacks. I mean, think about it. You're the one telling us that Biden's a pedophile, right? So you could very well piece together that he might be on the list too. So then that would be why he wouldn't release it. Doesn't that seem obviously logical? But it's just a thought. But here's what Dr. Shiva said. You are dumb. Biden and Trump are on the same team. Exactly. But here's what he said. Donald Trump is covering this up. Here's the evidence. Note, he says, one need not be an MIT PhD, which is what he is, to come to this obvious conclusion, but I will lay it out simply. Summary. The DOJ and FBI has thousands of photographs and video recordings of the adults committing child rape upon children. President Trump has directed his DOJ and FBI to not release this evidence. This is the cover-up. Now, you can decide for yourself the validity of his statements. The substantive facts, 1, there's evidence in the possession of the U.S. Department of Justice and the FBI, which is what they claimed. Videos and photographs of the adults committing child rape and their child victims, which again, they have insinuated that. That's the way I said it like that because they could be lying, right? But again, it comes back to whether they made these statements and now that they're changing their narrative. That's what they were claiming. I mean, Bondi actually made that explicit statement. Remember that? Like very clearly on an interview with Fox, I believe. Statement 1 is based on on one important body of evidence, among others identified in addition to what I said, a July 8th, 2019 court memo right here, which you can read for yourself. So this is what I think is so important to be able to look down the documents for yourself from before that verify that they're now covering this up. The memo referenced in number 2 was written and issued by then U.S. Attorney Jeffrey S. Berman. Less than 1 year after Berman issued that memo, he was fired by Donald Trump and Bill Barr on June 30th, 2020. Yes, Berman was fired by Trump and Barr. On page 9 of this court memo issued by Berman, it states, quote, in a search of the New York residence on the night of Epstein's arrest on July 6th to 7th, 2019, pursuant to judicially authorized warrants, law enforcement officers discovered not only specific evidence consistent with victim recollections of the inside of the mansion, further strengthening the evidence of the conduct charged in the indictment, but also at least hundreds and perhaps thousands of sexually suggestive photographs or fully or partially nude females. That's in the court document. Some of the nude or partially nude photographs appear to be of underage girls. Additionally, some of the photographs referenced herein were discovered in a locked safe. in which law enforcement officers also found compact discs and handwritten labels, including the following: Young and a name, and another plus another name, miscellaneous nudes 1 and girls pics nudes. 6, Pam Bondi, Attorney General of the United States, and Kash Patel, Director of the FBI, have in their possession this evidence and others. Epstein maintained a curated video library of adults, his clients, and their victims. Number 8, the DOJ FBI Joint International Memo, July 2025. That's one's here. I'll include these. Clearly states existence of 300 gigabytes of data, including images and videos of victims, some minors, and tens of thousands of downloaded videos and images of illegal child sex abuse material, surveillance footage from the Metropolitan Correctional Center during the time of Epstein's death. 9, the FBI's official vault that has a collection of released documents related to Jeffrey Epstein, including search warrants, photographs, video logs, and investigative files. It confirms the Bureau had retained custody of recorded evidence. Number 10, court stipulation confirms the possession and review of extensive digital evidence seized by the FBI federal agents, including videos and images involving minors. And these are all just court documents, not the actual things they're referencing. Conclusion, President Trump and Trump's DOJ and FBI already have in their possession the evidence, photos and videos to prosecute the adults who perpetrated child rape and trafficking. Trump is doing everything to distract the public from his participating in this cover-up. Now, you see, he's only talking about the cover-up. Not that you can definitively argue he's in it, but I think he does make that same point in other arguments. But how do you you can read the documents for yourself, and I recommend that you do. I mean, at this point, again, the evidence is obviously important, but even if you want to stand back from that and just recognize that Bondi herself stated these things were there, not the on my desk statement, but the statement of all the different videos they were looking at. How do we come back from that? How do they move beyond that and claim it's a hoax now? I mean, you just can't get past that. And I will include these documents for you. I think it's important that you read these to understand how very obvious this stuff is. It's like with the Garcia point. If you actually just read the documents themselves, as opposed to how mainstream alternative media framed them for you, you would already know they were lying. Now, here's an additional point that I'm going to tell you right out of the gate is clearly Trump on Howard Stern playing into the Howard Stern setting, right? But it doesn't really, it's sort of like the one we just played with Matt Miller on the bus, where clearly he's, they're laughing, he's trying to play into it, but she still said these things and they still were on his mind. And I think with everything else we've seen, like this, if this was the only thing we had, I wouldn't mean anything to me. It's what he said on there, other than that he said it and it's kind of gross, but it's with everything else, I do think it's relevant. Here's what Trump had to say on Howard Stern.
Best thing about being Donald Trump right now?
Well, other than the fact I'm married, okay?
Right.
And I'm very happily married. I have a great wife. But if I weren't married, I'd be able to get all of the girls I want, except for possibly Robin.
Do you think you could now be banging 24-year-olds?
Oh, absolutely. I have no trouble.
Would you do it?
I have no problem.
Yeah, do you have an age limit, or would you?
No, I have no age. I mean, I have an age. I don't want to be
the
like
upper bracket,
Congressman Foley with 12-year-olds.
Can I make a prediction for you?
Yes.
I say you have one more marriage in you.
Yeah. Well, that's nice. I'm sure Melania will love to hear that.
No.
And of course, let's not forget where he met Melania. It's just there's so many different overlaps. I mean, I agree. Most people are who want to support him will dismiss that as a joke. But it's the same as we've heard before. I mean, there's a lot of different points that make it make more sense. Now, of course, James Lee posted this. We just had a great interview with James Lee, by the way, that I recommend. Maybe I don't think I actually included that. I feel like we haven't. Here, let me grab that one for you. I'll include that in the show notes. I think this is the older one. Yeah, this is the first one we did. It's a great interview about his mini documentary. But here is the other one right here. I'll include both for you down below. This one was called James Lee Interview, Has the Epstein Story Broken the Partisan Mold? It's a great discussion, and it's very clear that we both see this shifting around. So here he said, what convenient timing. Now, I'll play just the opening of this, just in case you didn't see this. It is really jarring to see. This is when it's really start to set in for people that he was going to shift the narrative. Here's what he had to say about this before, about, you're still talking about Epstein. This was right when this was going, this is at its peak when people were expecting him to break, here's all the documents, and this is the kind of thing he was saying.
Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former labor secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So,
of course, right when they start asking about his connections to Israel, this is what Trump's response is.
could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the minute set?
Yeah, sure. If
Could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? Wow. This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have texts.
And you know where it goes. I mean, I can't believe he did that. That was really clumsy and obvious. I mean, on top of you talk about the Israel connection, but, you know, also the missing tape, which, by the way, we now know that there was about 2.5 minutes cut from that and that they were spliced together. Like, they did that, guys. There's no way around that, unless they were just that incompetent to not look for themselves before they put it out. I mean, they spent time investigating it, right? So both points he brings up, clearly, I think, were inconvenient for them. And so he pulls away from it. So James Lee hires that, or highlights that statement, and then points this out. This is what he said, interesting timing about. Just in, the House has canceled Thursday votes and will enter recess until September. Oh, good. We'll just wait until that. You know, it's just how stupid this has become, right? Oh, this is a person saying maybe they're misinformed. Anyway, the bottom line is that the congressional action on this, I find hard to believe is actually going to go anywhere, or the Trump administration action around it. I just don't, I think because they're all potentially implicated or threatened, or however you want to look at it. So I doubt we're going to see any movement in that direction. And here's a good point that Orwell pointed out, or just this is the meme that first she tagged and says, imagine watching videos of powerful old men, as they frame it, raping 11-year-old girls and thinking up, I'm going to help cover this up. Here's what Bondi said today. The Department of Justice does not shy away from uncomfortable truths, obviously incorrect, nor from the responsibility to pursue justice wherever the facts may lead. Also laughable. The joint statement by the DOJ and FBI of January 6th remains as accurate today as it was when it was written. Namely, that in the recent thorough review of the files maintained by the FBI in the Epstein case, no evidence was uncovered that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. Okay, you keep digging your eyes on how do you get away from charging Maxwell with, or can you charge her with trafficking? If you're telling us there is no other third party, there's no one that was trafficked to. There's just no way that lines up, guys. It says President Trump has told us to release all credible evidence. If Ghislaine Maxwell has information about anyone who's committed crimes, so how is she in jail right now? I mean, you have to understand, this is why her lawyers are making movement right now. And she says if they have any more information about other victims, the FBI and DOJ will hear what she has to say. See, that means they're going to talk about this behind the scenes and make a deal amongst themselves, which I doubt you'll ever get to see. Therefore, at the direction of Attorney General Bondi, I have communicated. Oh, I'm sorry. It's a statement by Todd Blanche posted on Bondi's account. And it says, therefore, at the direction of Bondi, I have communicated with counsel for Miss Maxwell to determine whether she would be willing to speak with prosecutors from the department. Well, let's be clear. She's already been screaming that she wants to talk to somebody. Clearly, that's the case. I anticipate meeting with Maxwell in the coming days. Until now, no administration on behalf of the department had inquired about her willingness to meet with the government. I mean, are you kidding me? So neither Trump's administration, Biden's administration, or anybody else. Like, I mean, okay, then how about until right now? How about said Trump's been in power? You're telling us you've been investigating the Epstein files for months and you haven't even mentioned or reached out to Maxwell? You see how there is infinite amount of directions right now that show you that they're clumsily, poorly, ineffectively trying to deceive you or to manipulate you right now. Now, Benny Johnson, of course, comes out, bad news, whatever they said, hooray, it's the greatest thing in the world, cheerleading. AG Pam Bondi just announced she's meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell to expose the truth about Epstein. Right, because governments don't lie. That never happens, right? A truly unprecedented move. How is that unprecedented? I mean, other than the sense that they just claim that nobody's talked to her, but it's not unprecedented to talk to a person who's involved in an investigation. This is just childishly, this is cartoon cheerleading, guys. This is what he does. Bondi seeks to find uncharged third parties and further evidence of Epstein's child trafficking operation. But, you know, the very thing that Trump right now says is a hoax. Have fun with that, Benny. That we know you'll never acknowledge that. Not in the context of, look, he's lying, or what she said proves that. You'll just cheerlead for both in separate moments. Bondi has also ordered full further disclosure of the FBI and DOJ. Wow. Wow. Bondi said things. Oh my God. It's worthy of ridicule, and you know it. Quote, therefore, at the direction of Attorney Bondi, oh yeah, the same thing we just read for you. Okay. So cheerleading the thing that they said without action. Typical mainstream alternative media. Sure, if we see something happen and it actually goes a positive direction, we'll talk about it. How much you want to bet this is not going to go where you think it will. Here, Jones says, desperate Democrats go full Epstein against Trump. Signal that Ghislaine Maxwell is ready to testify before Congress to falsely implicate the Trump in exchange for freedom. Okay, wait. So over here you got Bondi saying, and through one of her people saying, we're going to bring her in to get her testimony. And now Jones is saying that Democrats want that to happen, but for Congress, because they want that she's going to falsely implicate. So why is Benny Johnson going, woohoo, Troy, this is all going to change? I don't think you guys have gotten your story straight just yet. I think it's about whatever you think you can say to try to downplay how bad this all is right now. That it's shockingly embarrassing. False. Okay. Why? How about this? How about we just let her speak so we can hear what she says, and and rightly question her because she's a sex trafficker and a criminal. But let her talk. Somebody just let her publicly put her testimony out. But everyone's already trying to get ahead of it. If she says Trump's on it, she's already lying. These people have tapped. They are circled the wagons. We're defending Trump at all costs, despite trying to constantly play it like we're being critical. I only call balls and strikes. Really? Okay. House panel moves to subpoena Maxwell. Right. So bring her in. Let her speak. If Jones is more of the mind that we should let the Department of Justice pull her to a back room and have some secret deal that we'll never see, or rather have to take at face value what they tell you was said, how is that honest? This, at very least, would be public. Or, maybe they won't. Who knows? The point, nonetheless, is that I don't care what I want to hear what she has to say. And then we can discuss the validity of it or whether we can find out she was pressured or not. But the blind statement that that already without any evidence is typical Jones nonsense. Here, Whitney Webb adds to this. Benny Johnson's post about, wow, everything's changing. Whitney says, Ghislaine will do anything to negotiate her release and or prevent her from being harmed in prison if she believes her life is in danger. This is the ultimate way to both avoid releasing the bulk of Epstein documents still held by the government and still seem like they are pursuing justice in the case. See, this is what honest discussion looks like. You're not going to get that from the mainstream alternative media. Don't be fooled, she says. Maxwell will name the names she's told to so she doesn't end up like her father, Epstein, or Jean-Luc Brunel. So when they pull her in the back room, probably with some Mossad circling around, what do you think is going to happen? No, but we shouldn't assume that either, right? In the same direction. That's why we should wait to hear what happens and gauge it appropriately, not try to jump ahead and state narratives that will get you to think one way versus the other. The point is that clearly, is it possible that this is all constructed by the Democrats to go after Trump? Of course it is. Evidence is what matters, but see, this is the difference, is that obviously that's a possibility. And if that pops up as the evidence-based reality, that's the first thing we'll report. There's a big difference in what we're seeing everywhere else. Now, it says this could also pave the way for the pardon Ghislaine Maxwell, or Ghislaine movement, which, aside from Ghislaine's own family, seems to have really been started by the Thiel-verse operative Chuck Johnson a while ago. If they have Ghislaine testify, they say what she's testify and say what she's told to say, they can reward her with a pardon or reduce her sentence. Her testimony will be hard to trust given the stakes for her and for Trump administration. I agree. So that's why we have to wait and engage with that as it comes. Whitney is very knowledgeable about this more than anybody else. And that's why it matters. Now, of course, here's what they're saying. The mainstream alternative media verse trying to kind of downplay, hide, distract. The Obama part of it is just embarrassing. This is the reverse Russiagate kind of deny. In case you don't know what that means, it's obvious to anybody with, investigate, anybody who looked into the full body of evidence, that this was a manufactured psychological operation. Not that there wasn't elements, like you could argue that there was, let's put it this way. Every single government in my mind is always trying to do this, is always trying to influence in subtle ways, usually, so they don't have some bombshell like this, trying to influence the outcome of anything they think will benefit or hurt them. This is just basic. The US government, by the way, does it more than anybody I've ever seen in history. The point, at least in living memory, is to say that clearly there's obvious evidence that there was manipulation going on. Obama should be in jail. I don't disagree with that. The timing of this is obviously ridiculously suspect, which mostly conservatives are calling out. But secondarily, and I think even most importantly, I don't think Obama's going to get even, if there's an investigation, mark my words, he will not end up in jail. Now, I could be wrong, but the evidence, the history, the precedent, everything shows you the same thing. They never go to jail. Not Trump, not Hillary, not Clinton, any of them. They get slaps on the wrist, they get a reputational damage, and they quit their job. And the rest is all narrative. And people, they're going after Trump. Well, what's the outcome? Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm wrong. But what's the outcome? I hear a lot of narrative and I don't see any action. Don't see any out. He's not in jail. He didn't get, maybe some financial issues. Anyway, this is what the Patriot Oasis puts out. This is Michael Flynn saying, General Flynn calls on the Department of Justice to confiscate Obama's passport and others in the name of Russiagate documents. Okay. In this case, the idea of the evidence, if you want to go through this, then do it right. Present the evidence, have something done through actual legal channels, and present the evidence and charge him with a crime. The idea that they're pulling the passport and, this overlaps alarmingly with the issue of U.S. citizens, of passports, of citizenship. It's just alarming how extrajudicial, how, outside the law, the supposedly law-abiding peace president, the Constitution, they're breaking everything. Everything. And it seems by design. I think it's for a foreign country, but you could decide. Overall, David Icke says Obama, Clinton, and company are appalling. But this whole Gabbard disclosure is designed to divert attention from Trump and Epstein. The Trump sycophant who is so dependent on him, is reading his script. You can decide for yourself. I just think it's interesting. It says if I were the Department of Justice or the White House, I would demand they remove passports from these people. Well, you know what you should be demanding is if you're going to do that, then there better be a legal reason for doing so. See, because this over-the-top idea, well, do it now. That's Trump saying, do it now, due process later. That's what that is. That is a slow, incremental removal of what you believe foundationally in this country, the Constitution. He knows that. Mike Flynn's not stupid. That's alarming. And so again, my point would be, if you're going to do that, then go through it the right way. Present a case that's gone through the FBI or whatever, and present it and charge him, and then go through that process. Under the guy, he'll be a flight risk, obviously, but that's not what they're doing, guys. That's important. Now, Benny Johnson says, don't miss this, the single most important moment of transparency in U.S. history. He's really taken a page from the hyperbolic everything Trump point, right? Are we really going to pretend that this is the single most important moment of transparency in U.S. government history? No, yes, I'll argue that it is an interesting shift for them to kind of tell on each other. The point, though, is that everybody everywhere knew this already. I'm being hyperbolic with that statement. Clearly, there's some people that disregarded it, but it was really widely accepted. Aaron Mate is very well known, and he completely tore this thing down and still does. I don't think anybody's confused about this, not really. And so this is just them going, whatever they said is the best thing ever of all time, forever, no matter what. Hyperbolic, everything, Trump's the best. That's what they do every single day. The director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, just declassified proof of treason by Obama. No, it's the same thing. This is the same story. And as I made clear, there is a very clear crime that could be enforced here. But how much you want to bet it doesn't happen? And if it does, in some weird side way of somebody else that's not Obama, I'm willing to bet you that it won't be going through the right channels. It won't be done properly. Now, Spiro makes the obvious point. We have seen this one before. Nothing happened. Remember this? Just like the Epstein files. Lock her up became, she's good people. Move it on. Don't talk about her. She's okay. They're good. Now it's about Obama. Let's find out what happens, huh? Well, as I said before, what did I tell you? Right back to it. This was on the 20th. I do not apologize for getting Trump elected 3 times. 3 times. Alex Jones. Regardless of what comes out about Trump and the Epstein case, many members of his administration are doing a great job rescuing trafficking. I just think that's embarrassing. How in the world you're telling me they're not doing a great job? That has started to actually set in with people. They spent more than ever. They're building the government. They're building out. Everything they're doing is the opposite. The government's gotten larger. They're spending more. They're still funding the genocide. The Ukraine war, despite your lie about it, is still continuing. It's just sad, guys, but this is my point. Team sport politics. They're invested. Here he comes out doing this like we all knew. Here's the today. America demands arrests now. And just simply shows all the Democrats. Yeah, I agree. They're all war criminals. Put them in jail. Charge them with a crime and do so. That's not what he's really doing here. This is about trying to distract you from what else is happening. Again, I argue that's not actually going to happen. He does this, same thing, all day long, different ways. That's propaganda. You don't need to repeat yourself in the same way 13 times a day. That's about propaganda. Arrest them all for treason now. Trump says Obama himself manufactured the Russia hoax. Crooked Hillary, Sleepy Joe, and numerous others participated in this. The crime of the century, irrefutable evidence, a major threat to our country. So Obama personally, did I say Epstein when it first started? I hope I didn't. I meant Russiagate. Mix him up in my head. The point is, in case I said it, that he's claiming Obama personally carried out the Russiagate hoax, which certainly makes sense. Wouldn't surprise me at all. But let's see the evidence that proves the bigger reality, which I'm not even saying doesn't exist. What they've put out already does. And again, we already largely knew they were lying. My point is to do this, not on Twitter, but through legal channels. I mean, look, you guys really think that if they were really going to arrest him, that they would do it like this? Don't you think, like every other investigation, that this would happen, that he'd be arrested at his front door and then you would hear about the investigation? Just think about that for a second. If they wanted this would already be in, I mean, look, I could be wrong. Tomorrow it could happen. And I'll say good. I just don't think it will based on the way they're doing this. Same thing. It's true. Benny Johnson saying the same thing. Breaking. President Trump says Obama himself completely did it. And he goes, it's true. Okay. The idea that it was only, it's the same story, same point. Everyone trying to distract, everyone trying to double down on the statement, and most of which you can't prove. Mass arrests for treason are incoming. Well, that sure sounds familiar. Like military tribunals. And how long have we been hearing that? Well, and this is funny. So basically, Woods, just one of the same lackey, blind Team Sport followers. Excuse me. This is possibly the most alarming act of treason since the Lincoln assassination. I mean, clearly there was a psychological operation. Clearly, it's a big crime because of the shift of, I mean, you could call it a coup attempt, right? Really. But to say that this is the most alarming act of treason, personally, how about the idea that we're being controlled by a foreign government right now? How about the fact that you have people in Congress that are working for a foreign government? I mean, maybe you do think this is more important. I think because the real point is that they're all on the same team. That's not really what this was. I think this was about something different than shifting power amongst themselves. But you can decide for yourself. The main point, as always, is this is right now being shown to you. I don't think it's going to amount to anything you think it will, to distract you from the fact that they're all guilty. And this person says, Grok, what percentage chance does Obama get arrested? It says 0%. It's just interesting. No credible evidence or legal proceedings indicate an imminent arrest. And that's my point. That not that they don't have evidence that they presented on Twitter, but there's nothing actually happening that we can see. Maybe it's secret. I don't think so. And I simply just said, how much you want to bet this is the exact opposite of what's about to happen, which got some pretty people agree. I don't think it's going to happen. Not mass arrests, especially not in that way. Hope so, though. Now, here are some people calling it out, some people seeing through it, some people falling for it. 5 times August. I just am glad to see this. I really appreciate this statement. Because, he was wanted the best from Trump, supported somewhat more the conservative side. Donald Trump Jr. puts out this meme of Obama like the OJ race, basically in the white, when OJ was running from the police, and puts Trump and the big fat JD Vance in the cars and just laughs. 5 times August says this: all memes, no action. I don't find any of it amusing anymore. See, that's a lot of time. For a long time, people just were enjoying the kind of meme warfare. It's entertaining. It's a reality TV show. He says, I don't find any of it amusing anymore. It's exhausting and it's truly insulting, because that's what they're doing it for. Just pacification. He goes, but people will keep clapping along like seals, I guess. See, he gets it. He sees that they're placating. Nothing's actually happening. Comrade Misty says, I can't believe people buy this. Here's the White House. They came after the wrong man. Like, they are cartoons right now. Like, this is idiocracy level propaganda. I was hunted, now I'm the hunter. Like, this is just, there's no decorum with what they're doing. It's clumsy. It is I think they've lost touch with what people actually think makes sense, other than their, top 3% of the morons on Twitter that scream for whatever they put out. Here, Gun 3 Goodman, speaking of that, says, breaking, President Trump just announced that federal tax dollars will stop being sent to Harvard. Winning! What a desperate effort. So, yay, Trump is using governmental power to basically suppress speech, because that's what it's about, in regard to Israel, because that's what it's about. I'm not supporting Harvard, especially for 100 reasons I could point out, but just to argue that that is even what we pretend is aligned with American values, but secondarily that that's winning. He stopped some money going to a college. Woohoo! Here's, no Epstein files, mRNA shots, CRISPR fake pig meat, MMR, more spending, bigger government, but yay! Cane sugar. It's like these people are a joke right now. Here, Alex Jones says, Trump is taking the gloves off. Big stuff is about to go down. And plays a video that Trump posted about Hillary Clinton. You can watch it. I don't think anyone's confused about how Hillary Clinton is a monster. Clinton body list. We've talked about all this stuff. She should be in prison like the rest of them. But the idea is just look at Clinton. Stop, because they know that's a buzz word. It's a buzz topic. Clinton, the pedophiles, whatever, all of which you should investigate, care about. They matter. This is just a distraction. And that's taking the gloves off, Alex Jones says. Oh, yeah? Well, here's an interesting statement that Trump just made. Destiny Resendez. You might not be surprised about this if you're paying attention.
I called Hillary Clinton. I said, you know what? Let's not go too far here. It's the ex-wife of a president, and I thought it was sort of terrible. And I let her off the hook, and I'm very happy I did.
Oh, well, that's too bad. I guess Jones doesn't have the talking points. Or it's about covering up for them no matter what. The point is, if taking the gloves off is showing a clip of Hillary Clinton's, crimes, and yet here he is making it clear that that's not isn't Clinton a chief element of the Obama circle? It's just none of this makes any sense. And if you're honest with yourself, you already get where this is going. Here, Mario Nawfal comes out and says, MLK files, CIA monitored JFK assassination film accusing U.S. agency of conspiracy. I haven't got a chance to dive through this in depth, but my point was the same from the beginning. First of all, on the Martin Luther King, the evidence is proven from the Pepper, what's his first name? James Corbett has done good work on this for a long time. I forget his name, Pepper something. The point is that the civil trial against the U.S. government already proved that they were involved with his assassination. It was civil, so there was no criminal trial. Nobody went to jail, but there was money exchanged, and it was already proven. It's obvious what happened. The government was involved with killing him, guys. That's already on the surface. So this is about just trying to bomb you with things to keep you distracted. The JFK dynamic did not change. It's the same point. They're still trying to distract from the obvious in the conversation. I don't honestly think, and I'm only caveat is unless there's something I missed, I have already been looking through this, that I don't think this is changing the story. But let's just even say it does in some way that I've missed. Does that not still feel dishonest with what's going on? Let's just even say it is, because they're lying to you. We know that. They're trying to cover this up. And if they even throw you a bone about something, good, that's good. But now go back to the thing they're lying about. Here's Jones saying, Homeland Security Committee confirms the Biden administration deliberately aided and abetted the trafficking of hundreds of thousands of children for sex slavery and slave labor. Interesting timing to come out with this. Now, we covered this when this is the actual document. July 17, 2025. Now, this has already been discussed. We already talked about this in the overlap of what was it called again? The dynamic of Biden and the immigration point. There was all these children that were you could say trafficked in the context of this country, but moved around. And there was many phone calls that were exchanged about what was going on. They were ignored with all the issues that were happening to them. There's a whole big thing here. Let's be clear. The U.S. government in many ways has tapped into this, whether it's through CPS elements or foster care, or a lot darker things we've talked about in foreign policy. So in no way am I trying to suggest that Biden or anybody else is not potentially involved with this kind of thing. The point is that this is an obvious kind of, if you watch this and read through it for yourself, it's not, the way he's stating it is not as absolute as they try to make it sound, even though these people should all be in prison as far as I'm concerned. And it's obvious there's all sorts of things happening here. But think about the timing of this. Well, Donald Trump is in the crosshairs for being involved with a trafficking thing, or at the very least, hiding it from everybody. And Every day you've got a new look over there, look over there. This is the side. How about the fact that they're all guilty? I just think it's frustrating that this is what's happening, as it's so desperate about trying to get you to look anywhere other than the immediate issue that's in front of you. Here. Oh, and this is the one about Russia. I just thought this was interesting. I saw this. This was yesterday. And it's the same thing every time. This is this exact thing that Jones actually just used the last time. We talked about it to hype up that we were already in World War III. Remember that? Where all it was somebody in Russia saying, well, that option's on the table, which it always is. So every time somebody asked them about what's going on and what are your possible options, well, one of those would be nukes. That's always on the table. That gets blown out by people like them. They go, they threatened to nuke the U.S., which spins out into some 3-day talk about how World War III is happening already, which he does every other Thursday. The thing here is that this is happening constantly because all it is a question. And yet again, and if you listen to the video, they make it sound like we're on the cusp of World War III and Russia is going to bomb the country. No, all they said was that that's an option. And they weren't even talking about nukes. They're simply talking about missiles at this point. And are we actually going to pretend that right now them using missiles against people that are attacking them is not already on the table? It's just so wild how easy it is to play some people, or rather they just don't want to see it. Here, Mike Eagleman says, Pam Bondi has an opportunity to become the greatest attorney general in American history. Don't blow it. I just said these people are truly delusional or just desperate. Maybe a little bit of both. That is just insane to me. No one outside of people trying to shill for them actually think that right now because it's not going their way. And again, we saw something like this. We just played that one about the eagle. I mean, it's something about this just is like the diminishing of this country. It's like, it's just lowbrow. It is lowest common denominator. It's idiocracy level. I think I did grab it. Let me play it for you. It's just sad. What was this one? Oh, that's next. Let's see. Yeah, here it is. That's it. I mean, doesn't that just embarrass you? Like that's something that I would put out to make fun. Like it is aimed at the lowest common denominator. And here's what they put: live view, the White House, she's in her golden age. I just think that's sad because clearly that's not what most people think. The golden age of this country. I mean, guys, it's the opposite of what was promised. I mean, everything we already went over, but this is just about, people that will cheer it because it's they'll cheer regardless is what it feels like. It just feels like a lack of decorum. It feels like they're childish, and it feels like somebody is hurting this country with everything that they do. Thomas Massey, of course, came out and says 79% of Americans support releasing the Epstein files. Again, a poll. You should always question a poll because it's never the full picture. He's claiming because a poll he did or somebody around him did that 79% of Americans, which I agree with, support releasing the Epstein files. But only 16 members of Congress have sponsored the legislation to do so. What does that show you, guys? He goes, after 7 legislative days, he goes, I'll be able to collect signatures to force a vote on my bill to release all the files. I just think it's insane. And he's taking it off this. So, YouGov. So don't take it at face value, but consider it. Because I agree, it seems pretty obvious the majority of Americans want that, left and right, whether it's because they want to go after Trump or because they want the truth. The point, though, is 16 members of Congress. 16. The point is, guys, that needs to show you that these people are not acting in the interest of Americans because the vast majority want that and they don't, whether it's because they're guilty and on that list or because there's a foreign power funding them to ignore it. I just think it's very obvious. Now, Massey came out about phase 2, which don't forget, Paulina Luna just claimed that they're on phase 3, even though phase 2 has never been released. Like, it's just so sad what's going on. But here's what Trump put out. So this is basically Massey comes out and says, we need to release phase 2, that this has to happen. We're going to force a vote about this, all the things we just read. Moments after that, Donald Trump tweets this, or Truth Socials this. Thomas Massey, the worst Republican congressman, and an almost guaranteed no vote each and every time is an embarrassment to Kentucky. He's lazy, slow-moving, and totally disingenuous. A real loser. Never has anything positive to add. Looking for someone good to run against this guy. Someone I can endorse and vigorously campaign for. Wow. You know why? I realize what people are arguing because he came out and said Epstein files, they need to come out. Here's phase 2 that I'm going to release. That's in his hand right there. Now, whether that's something they put together or it's an actual binder that was not released, you sure as hell don't have DC Drano calling this out. The people that were supposedly giving you the information, they claimed they're lying. They're shilling for the team. One is just childish. He's a real loser. Like, that's embarrassing. Only children act like that. especially when you're the president of a country or other sycophant followers who just like you poking fun at anybody. That's the people leading all of this. And on top of that, realize that most conservatives support Thomas Massie. So he's boxing out people every possible way. That's desperate. Now, you have to at least consider that's because there's clearly something he's responding to that's in those files, or somebody else who funds his campaign who doesn't want that to come out. That's what makes sense to me. Question it for yourself. Now, I actually thought this was Morgan Freeman, the actor, because of how large it was, but apparently it's I even thought that TV producer, because he's done that too. But this is actually a producer, director, I guess. But, it's large account, got some good reach. But I just found it interesting. If you look at all these, now the top three are the same spot. 3 different shots, same spot of Trump laughing with Epstein. But if you look at all these different shots, guys, he's with Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell in a whole, and this is not even all of them. That doesn't prove guilt. Let's be clear, but it sure as hell suggests that this is somebody who's okay being around what they all now, it seems, is now clear they all knew was going on, as even Trump alluded to. Now, to finish, it's important that we don't lose sight of what's going on in Gaza, guys. It is unreal. It is the most important thing happening in the world. It is unreal what is happening, and it never slows down. Your government support it regardless. This is the crux of the problem right now. Like, it has to be obvious that all of these things seem to link back to what's going on here. Question it. Doubt me. I want that. Look into it for yourself if that's what that causes. But I believe that. I think it's obvious there's a bigger problem happening here. So, at 3:45, I'll be on with Matt Weinglass, so make sure you check that out. I don't think the link has been put out there, but I'll try and reshare it for you guys. But I'll be done, within the next 45 minutes, probably less than that with this part. And I'll say it again if we get done. But so starting with this, breaking the silence. Today in the Israeli Knesset, this is the sign in front of you. Here's what it read. Meeting of the lobby for the renewal of Jewish settlement in the Gaza Strip. The thing they've been planning, had names for the settlements before October 7th, to be clear. Yet they lied and said, that's not what we want. We just want to help the Palestinians. But here's the list of places we're going to seize from them, regardless of how this goes. They've been lying to you, and it takes a special stupid to not be able to see that by now. Topic, the Gaza Riviera, the thing Trump coined, from vision to reality. It says it's not just rhetoric. They mean business. We have to stop the ethnic cleansing. It's right. They feel like they have impunity if they're willing to be this public about what they otherwise claim is not the reality. They being simply the Israeli government. Now, here is a post that Donald Trump put out that Derek shared. And this is Kathleen saying, we were told this is what to expect. Donald Trump posted a video on Truth Social depicting the remaking of the destruction of Gaza into some condo resort for Trump and his Zionist allies. It also has an AI depiction of him and Netanyahu sunbathing on the beach. What it also has? There's Elon Musk. It also has a very weird shot of women in beards on the beach. I just think that's interesting. He doesn't seem to care about that. There's so many weird little things in all this. The point is, all of them have been telling you this is where it's going. If you're just going to be, it's time to be honest with yourselves. Eye on Palestine says urgent humanitarian appeal. Mohammed Zakaria al-Matawik, a child suffering from severe malnutrition, muscle weakness, and brain complications due to a lack of food and unavailable treatment. His weight has dropped to just 6 kilograms. His condition is worsening, and his medications are not available in the hospitals or pharmacies. If you wanted to reach out, there's a contact number. But these children are suffering every single day right now. They're starving in front of our eyes. And this is not, they might have claimed in the beginning that this was overblown. There's only 1 or 2. Right now, it's every day. There's numbers coming out every day of children, 10, 20, dying every single day right now. And that's only growing exponentially because they're starving to death. We've been telling you that the IPC told you that there's a famine risk a year ago, guys. Every day, these people are suffering every single day because the Israeli government has actively they're now lying about even UNRWA. UNRWA has like 700 trucks just waiting to go in, probably all rotten at this point, that Israel is claiming they're not going in. Israel's been holding them back and restricting access from the start of this. And they're just lying about it, which shows you yet again, they're willing to not just do it, but to lie to maintain the slow starvation of children. That's who your governments are working with. That's who your governments are supporting. That's who your governments are funding and arming to the teeth. child Rafa al-Balawi is collapsing due to famine in Gaza. I'm sorry you have to look at this, guys, but it's the reality of what's happening. And it is important that we not hide from this. She's lost 80% of her body weight, dropping from 25 kilograms to just 5 kilograms. It's 11 pounds due to severe malnutrition. She went from 55 to 11 pounds. Rahaf is one of hundreds of children facing slow death under the Israeli siege with no access to food or medical care. This is what's happening, guys. There's no hiding from it. Zionists don't care. They're out there screaming to you that this is acceptable. I'll show you a tweet from Randy Fine. Bombs away, he'll say. He does not care. Or, I mean, I should actually grab that. I really hope I still have that, because that clip was absolutely shocking. Shoot. Daniela Weiss speaking with Piers Morgan. I bet you I could find that. There it is. I want to include this right now. Maybe I won't play it this moment, but I'm going to include it in this conversation because it just shows you the kind of mental, like deficiency we're dealing with here. Like these are sociopaths. They do not care about people suffering. And that's self-evident, guys. So here is another example. A displaced, starving Palestinian woman, grown woman, haven't eaten in 5 days, she says. I just want food. I walk a little and feel dizzy. My stomach is empty. George Galloway says, any reaction? Anywhere? Anyone? Saul Sanaforth posts this discussion from Al Jazeera. There is no case since World War II of starvation that has been so minutely designed and controlled. A famine expert, Alex DeWall, on Israel deliberately starving an entire civilian population. Here's Pastor Greg Locke, the guy that Alex Jones platformed and allowed him to make cases about how Gazan people are lying about starving to death. This is not a man of God. Period. I don't care what you have been convinced is happening. I don't care if you think that they're all lying about starving. The amount of children who have been killed, if you think that's okay, if you're willing to gaslight us into thinking that that's acceptable, you're not a man of God. You're not a man of the God that I believe in at the very least. He says, you know who's actually hungry in Gaza? The hostages they refuse to release. Also uninformed, it seems, seeing as how, since from Blinken to the current administration, they've had 17 examples of opportunities to release the hostages. The last one, all they had to do was take the last step into phase 2, and every single one of them would have been released. Israel denied that. They denied the last one. I mean, it's every single time. Makes me sick that these people act like they're righteous when they're supporting a genocide and the slow starvation of innocent children. Dave DeCamp says, this is one of the people who died of starvation today. This is today. 22nd. A 6-week-old Yusuf al-Safadi was his name. This is who Randy Fine is telling us to starve away. This dead child, I'm sorry to say, 6 weeks old, died of starvation. Here's what Randy Fine had to say. This post of ABC says 15 people have died, including 4 children, from famine and malnutrition in the last 24 hours. That's ABC News. Here's Randy Fine. Release the hostages. Until then, starve away. My God, these are monsters. I mean, this is somebody who Trump has endorsed more than once. You realize that even if you agree that it's because the hostages is all happening, that means you are okay with starving children in order to get them to release. That is a crime. A textbook example of collective punishment. Randy Fine is a Zionist monster. He is absolutely one of the worst people in Congress. He's at Laura Loomer level, guys. Disgusting, vile, and actively shows you that every day. Now, when I said he says bombs away, he's done that. It shows the images of dead children in the rubble, and he goes, bombs away. Release the hostages again. You realize he knows this. I mean, let's be clear. He's probably not the brightest bulb in the room. The point is that I argue he knows that these people have been lied to, that they could have been released, or that Israel's own government has said probably 6 different times the hostages are secondary. In case you're new to the show, here's just one example. CBC News spoke to them, the Israeli government, over a year ago, and they said Defeating Hamas is priority. Everything else is secondary. I have a clip of them, to Netanyahu, and I think it was Gavir, saying that. And yet you're going to release the hostages. Well, they've been bombing where they are. They know all of this, guys. And every hostages that have come back have told you they were fed, they were kept safe, and in many cases, they used their own bodies to protect them from IDF bombs or the Hannibal Directive that's killed them more than anything else. Randy Fine is a monster. That's the child he doesn't care about. Dave DeCamp says if Trump really wanted the killing to end, he would get on the phone and end it. The point is, everything we just showed you and what we're going to finish with, the Donald Trump administration and the Biden administration are 100% okay with and could stop it like that. And they don't. But here's Leave It lying to you.
The president's message on this conflict we've seen in the Middle East taking place for far too long that has become quite brutal, especially in recent
or been the entire time. You know, ethnic cleansing can be brutal, but they don't care.
Days you've seen reports of more people dying. The president never likes to see that. He wants the killing to end, and he wants to negotiate a ceasefire in this region. He wants to see all of the hostages released from Gaza.
All of which would have happened if they would have just kept going with the thing that was already there. They stopped it, and Trump lied about it. Simple. Proven.
That has been a top priority for this president. Within this 6 months, we have seen many of the hostages released, including the last living American hostage, Edon Alexander, which was
Israeli American, right? Except they don't care about the Americans that are still suffering and have died there since the beginning. They only care about the Israeli Americans. But on top of that, the idea of these hostages being released has nothing to do with any of them. The only reason this ever happened is because they've gotten some momentary deal when in reality Israel's violated every single time. The ones they did release, the ones she's referencing, are the phase one where they abused the situation to get them to be released and then broke the deal in the second phase. Like we told you from day one, literally day one. Why? Because their own government told you they would. And not the mainstream media, not the mainstream alternative media were honest enough to simply point to and show you them saying that. We will break it on phase two. And all the rest of them, Leave It included, said, we're going to bring the hostages back and we'll end the whole thing. But now Hamas broke the deal. Well, weird how they've been telling you they were going to break it the whole time, but now it's Hamas's fault. They're children, and they think you're children.
As a result of this administration's diplomatic efforts and approach to ending this conflict. And again, this is another conflict that the president inherited from the previous administration who was...
Oh my God. So now we're going to pretend this is Biden's war? Yeah, they're all involved in the genocide. Are we going to pretend this all started on October 7th? Like, they think you're this stupid, guys.
So weak and incompetent, it led to so much chaos and death around the world, but this president is focused on solving it.
Right. So that, of course, that's your big ending. Democrat bad. So support what I say. That seems to only work on the dumbest people in the room. There's a lot of them, though. Let's not forget that. And if he wanted to do that, he could do it like that. Simple. So that's not true. He doesn't want to stop it, or he's not able to. Here is a doctor we played before, Tanya Haj Hassan, and this is next to her Graham Groom pleading to stop the mass extermination. It's hard to watch.
13. This is Amir. Amir's 13. I went to visit Amir after he was operated on. I went very near his ear because he kept repeating something, and he said, I have a feeling my entire family's dead. Everybody I love has gone to heaven. I wish I had died too. That is not a unique phenomenon. A single wounded child with no surviving family. Entire families have been removed from the civil registry in Gaza. If this isn't mass extermination, I don't know what is. And so we're here today just genuinely to plead with you to do something, not just condemnation.
Here is another example, and I'll include the long thread of doctors all telling you this is when she tried to speak out about this, I think about a year ago, and nobody cared. Or rather, the governments didn't care. I know you did.
Want to leave, but we cannot. We might not survive until the morning.
Imagine just having to suffer through that, to watch these children shot in the head, to watch the children killed in front of you, starved to death, doctors raped and tortured and killed, and then having nobody care about it. Standing up and giving evidence to back up what you're saying, and still being called and being asked, do you condemn Hamas? Which in one interview, she just tore them apart for that. How dare you? Like, it's just so insulting what's actually happening. It's all over the place, guys. Dr. Nick Maynard.
Every single part of the hospital has been destroyed. The whole infrastructure of the hospital has been destroyed. When I spoke to Marwan yesterday, he told me there were 107 patients.
When were you in Gaza?
End of April for the first couple of weeks. And then there's sniper bullets. I have children that were shot twice.
Wait,
Well, both of those videos we've shown many times where doctors are telling you they watch children get killed. They're not, there's no human shields every single day. Now, here is one of these an Israeli propagandist in the government who has been caught lying to you in very, very embarrassing ways many times. I have one example today. I'll show you. So here she is trotted back out on Channel 4 News to say most doctors in Gaza are involved in terrorist activities. Right. You wonder why? Seeing as how in here, I think, here, I'll grab right here for you. I opened it on the wrong window. And I retweet this every time. Of course, it always has a warning on it because they don't want people to see it, even though it's blurred out. There is no graphic in there. The point is, all of these doctors and all the ones I played sent that I haven't added are all telling you the same thing. All of them. And that's why she's telling you, they're terrorists. Because that's the only thing they can do. Oh, they're terrorists. People that don't like what we're doing, that we kill children, they're all terrorists. You have evidence for that? No, but we'll call them terrorists anyway, and half the world will go along with it because we'll call them racist if they don't. It's insane. Most doctors in Gaza are terrorist activities, or were involved in. Okay, well, here's where she was caught lying very embarrassingly about how there's no churches in Gaza.
If a ceasefire means the return of the hostages and the dismantlement of a genocidal regime that has stated that they're going to attack us again, then everybody would be in favor of a ceasefire. But if a ceasefire means that we're just going to keep them quiet for a bit until they attack again, then it's Israel's obligation to defend its citizens.
Well, isn't that interesting? So by that same reverse logic, then why would Hamas make a deal with them if all you're going to do is make the deal and wait for Israel to attack again? Isn't that the same reverse logic? But you see, their broken logic only seems to apply in their benefit when they wanted to, periodically.
And destroy that threat, don't you think?
Why is it necessary, is reported, to start shooting, having snipers outside a church?
Mm-hmm.
I saw the reports this morning.
Obviously, there's snipers everywhere that we've proven to this point. Now, right in front of you in the middle of bread lines, but she tries to dispute the church.
The church, there are no churches in Gaza, so I'm not quite sure where the report is talking about.
There's a Catholic church in.
There's plenty of them. At least there was before the bombings.
There isn't there. That is.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are no Christians because they were driven out.
Oh, okay. So time out. So there's no churches. Yeah, but there are. Oh, but there's no Christians. Okay. Well, you just lied and just jumped to the next lie. This is what I'm always saying about Israeli propaganda, that I don't know why they think they can get away with it. I guess they have for 76 plus years. She thought she could just lie and that nobody would push back. But he goes, but there's a Catholic, here's a church. Oh, but there's no Christians. Okay, let's keep going.
Respectfully, there are Christians, because I spoke to an MP yesterday who has family members in the church who are Christians.
Yep. Well, I don't know what happened. I don't know who was attacked.
Oh, but anyway, let's move on because I look stupid. It's insane. Every day, from there is a list to lying about a rape manual to lying about a CD-ROM that you claim is some kind of a book cover. I mean, it's absolutely childishly cartoonish. And we've seen this from the very beginning, and yet somehow they still see, this is where it comes that moment. If with all of that, they still are able to influence your government to complete silence and blind support, how does that not show you something else is going on? I just find that to be constantly in your face. Well, here's the Lemkin Institute. And as he writes, the Lemkin Institute for Genocide Prevention, named after Raphael Lemkin, a Holocaust survivor who coined the term genocide. He says it plainly. Quote, no more discussions, meetings, reports, sessions, summits. Get food and water to Gaza now. If you have the power, you must use it. Now, they've already claimed this is a genocide, right? As Netanyahu tried to use Lemkin's name in the beginning, and then they came out and said genocide, and so now they don't talk about it. The point is that this Holocaust survivor, the original Raphael Lemkin, is the one behind the Lemkin Institute, and they're telling us genocide. On top of that, they're saying you need to feed these people. You're starving to death. We also have a genocide expert who spoke up and said that's what this is. It's obvious. Here, Alan Mizrahi saying people don't get it. Now, you can disagree with his opinion on where it's going, but I agree that there's something rapidly shifting. He says people don't get it yet, but Israel is already over. As I said a year ago, he said, already, it will never be stable or manageable. It is only going to implode or explode violently. Now, the point is, here's a clip in Israel. It looks like a movie theater. All it says is documentation, from Cinema City, Jerusalem. Youths rioted in the popcorn area, threw objects at workers while shouting, can you guess? Death to Arabs. No arrests were made. Can you imagine that? No arrest after this. And I mean, not the protesting, but simply the disruption in most cases, people, but the throwing of objects over, and clearly, I mean, that's. Just a breakdown of society, guys. And you're chanting death to Arabs? Can you imagine if they were chanting death to Jews anywhere? It's like, clearly this is a central thing. This is a problem within their society that they don't ever want you to acknowledge. But I agree with them in the sense that we are seeing a massive shift here. Whether that means the end of Israel, I find it hard to believe whether that's the case. They'll ever let that actually happen, even from a U.S. Western global dynamic, because it's important they've lied to you your entire life. But I still think he's right that they were watching a breakdown in general. But here's Naftali Bennett, Haftanya Naftali, saying Germany's capital, Berlin, is pushing a law requiring new immigrants to recognize Israel's right to exist before getting citizenship. Sure, sounds familiar, doesn't it? In the German state of Brandenburg, recognition of Israel's right to exist has become a condition for naturalization. Yeah, not even Germany's right to exist, but just acknowledgement that Israel has a right to exist is the only way you can become a German citizen. You want to make sense of that without the obvious? Or how about you want to go in and be like, I want to be a German citizen, but I don't think the U.S. has a right to exist. Come on in, happy. But if you don't think Israel has a right to exist, you can't be here. I mean, there's just no misunderstanding this, guys. This is a powerful move to fight anti-Semitism, he writes. Is that what it is? Hate for the Jewish state has no place in Europe. Well, we're talking about Zionism. We're talking about the idea of a state, not Jewish people, despite your constant lie about that. The problem, even if you do pretend that it's the state of the Jews, which is not even what Jews around the world believe, the point is that it's a state. It is a government that's acting, and you have a right to think that they're acting illegally. The point is that this is what's happening in the United States. This is what Donald Trump and his administration and Biden and his administration are doing, forcing you into this position. And now already arguing that people will be revoked, having citizenship revoked, even U.S. citizens, if they think this way. What, that the state's committing genocide? Yes, that they'll frame as anti-Semitism. That is what's happening. And I'll include this, by the way, for the podcast, the long thread of doctors telling you that they're committing genocide and seeing them kill children. Now, lastly, just on the way out, to not forget that Syria is imploding in its own right, Jolani's TV station accidentally exposed the kidnapping of Druze women and a child at the hands of forces loyal to the self-appointed president that both Netanyahu and Trump blindly support. Trump just called him a handsome guy, apparently. Then an interviewer was asked to cut the interview because they caught that. There are now dozens of confirmed cases of kidnapped Druze citizens in Sweden. As Robert already told you a long time ago, was where this was likely going to kick off. Now, on top of that, you've probably seen this, the new Syrian ISIS regime, which is already present. We've shown you this many times. Here's just the images in case you haven't seen it. These are actual images from after they took over Syria at the behest of Israel. In 2 cases wearing ISIS patches proudly. Look it up. Use the reverse image search. It's right in front of you. And ISIS-linked groups they're working with in Gaza, they're pulling the mask off, guys. I mean, for crying out loud, this is Hayat al-Sham. That's Al-Qaeda. They're working with them. Shouldn't be surprising. Now, sadly, in this video, they're forcing anybody they don't agree with to jump off the roof in this case, or they're shooting them. This is ethnic cleansing ongoing. These are the people that Netanyahu and Donald Trump support. and the UK supports. They support these people. This is the when they push the plot away, these are who they let take over, and they're killing. They're killing Christians. They're killing Muslims. They're killing anybody they don't agree with. And it's specifically around the Druze population at this moment, but there's a lot of this. Right at the beginning, it was literally everywhere. Look at that. That's who they support. Very public. This got a lot of coverage. Here's another one. This is the worst one I've seen. I mean, there's no error, and this is very clear. This person says, who are you? I'm Syrian. What do you mean Syrian? Are you Muslim or are you Druze? Sure kind of sounds familiar to something I'll reference in a second. Sadly, he kills them because he gives the wrong answer. This is ethnic cleansing. I mean, this is, genocide does not always have to mean a lot of numbers too, but that's something that experts can decide on whether it meets the metrics. The point is, if you're executing people based on ethnicity and doing it on a mass scale, that's genocide to me. He says, I'm Druze. Allahu Akbar! Right. And then you get the Loomers of the world, the rest that come out and try to make this a case about radical Muslims. And sure, you could clearly make that case, except they're the ones that are being put in power and supported and funded by the US and Israel. Oops, exactly like it's actually always been happening from the beginning of this conversation. That's the point. And it's just starting to slip away. They're starting to lose control. Now, the point I was making is when they're, are you Syrian? Oh yeah. What kind of Syrian? We just had that kind of a sentiment pushed into American minds. And I think you remember about, the Civil War point.
Sir, okay. I'm just saying. Just what? Well, you're American, okay?
Okay. What kind of American are you?
Isn't that interesting? And this is where we're going. Oh, yeah? Are you naturalized or a U.S. citizen? Because that's not the same thing, apparently, in the minds of current political dynamic or where we're going in this world, right? About whatever they decide to make those divided lines on. That's where we are right now, guys. It's just insane. And it's very clear that it's being driven into your view. And right now, I mean, around the world, you're watching the villains benefit from their villainy everywhere you look. Might makes right is not the answer, clearly, especially when you've got criminals in power, which is just all of them, to be clear. But everything we discussed today, guys, and here, actually, I'll play this clip too. Just, I'll end with this clip because it's important to recognize how sinister this really is. And it's not every Jewish person, or even importantly, not every Israeli. There's plenty of them. It's a small minority, but there's a lot of them that do not agree with what's happening in Syria, in Gaza, in general. Just like there was a lot of Jews in the very beginning that did not agree with the occupation and what they were doing to the Palestinians. All right. And that's not the same point, right? They're talking about Zionists today, and that includes Jewish people, but even all the way back to the beginning, guys, I guess that is the same point that I'm making, that the misrepresentation of the entirety of Judaism is part of the Zionist manipulation, but they do include it. There are Zionists that are Jewish supremacists. It's very clear. It's important that we call this stuff out because right now, I believe that is all for long since infiltrated this government. And we're watching this play out in front of us. And at the same time, with that and the partnership with Israel for the AI direction and having access to everything that they know about you as they build out some technocratic panopticon in line with the genocide committers in Palantir and Gaza and Israel. I mean, my God, how is this not incredibly alarming as they're now covering up for international pedophile? I mean, come on. It's obvious. I know you see it, right? I know you see it. We got to do something about this. Never talking about violence, but do something. Find time to do something other than just, share social media, which, by the way, yes, I mean, if that's all you can do, good. Get the information out. But it's time to start trying to do something else to show other people, at the very least, that you're not blindly partisan. Stand up and make that clear. I think that's an important starting point. But it's important that we do something. Thank you for continuing to support this platform because we care about doing something, about watching, fighting every day we can for good things, to be better than we were yesterday, to try to save the things that we always believe this country actually is or are, continue to be, or to make it better, right? To fight for a world where we don't have to have governments ruling over our lives. But either way, it's important right now to watch how that reality that I just showed you is being driven into our minds and is being driven into reality. The idea that we are divided down the middle. I mean, we're half a step away from something like that. And who do you think that benefits? Sure as hell not the American people. Thank you for tuning in. I love you all. As always, question everything. Come to your own conclusions. Stay vigilant.
How do you feel about the fact that over 20,000 Palestinian children have now been killed since October the 7th in Gaza?
I think that the Palestinians, as you said, you see, I said Palestinians, the Gazans and all Arabs around should stop attacking Israel.
Right, I just asked you how you felt about 20,000 children being killed by the IDF. So how do you feel about that?
I think that the parents should be very careful before they teach the children to hate Jews and to kill Jews.
No, that wasn't my question.
I warn
that wasn't
Arabs.
my question. Sorry to be persistent, but my question.
That was your question.
My question was, how do you feel?
Answer.
My question was, how do you feel? How do you personally feel about over 20,000 Palestinian children now being killed since October the 7th in Gaza? How do you feel about that?
I think that Arabs, Gazans or Jordanians or Syrians, whoever, should be very, very careful with the way they educate the children.
Yeah, that wasn't my question.
Now,
that wasn't my question.
Many of them.
Can you answer my question?
Answer. That was my answer.
So you don't
to
care?
Your question.
You have no thoughts about these children at all?
You choose your questions, and I answer them
of course.
The way I believe is right.
But just to be clear, you have nothing to say about 20,000 children being killed. Nothing at all.
I have a lot to say about everything that happened as a result of the massacre of the 7th of October.
I understand you care about Israeli
Arabs
children who died, as do I. But I'm able to care about both sides of children who've died. Why don't you care, seemingly, about the Palestinian children who've died? Why can't you express any sympathy or sorrow or empathy with the children who've died in Gaza? Are you able to do that?
I warn all Arabs from all sides, from all borders, warn them, stop educating children to hate
So just to be clear, I've now offered you three times.
I made myself very clear.
Oh, you've made yourself very clear.
You asked me 5 times.
I'm going to give you one last.
You asked me 7 times.
Okay, I'm going to give you one last chance to offer some empathy or sympathy or sorrow about the deaths of 20,000 children in Gaza. Are you capable of doing that?
I can tell you that had you cared, and I don't believe you that you care a tiny bit about one killed person if you do not use the means that you have as a media person to stop educating children.
I gave you 4 chances.
Jews. Okay, you gave me 7. You gave me 7.
And you know what? You couldn't give a damn, could you?
That you are to blame more than me.
You don't care. And all you want is all the Palestinians gone. You can barely even bring yourself to say their name. All you want is to take over the West Bank and Gaza. You don't care how many die in the process. You want them all gone. You don't care, do you? That's the bottom line.
As you said, the audience will judge.
Yeah, they will.